Why Do Atheist Do-Gooders Go to Hell? By Yaseen Rocca on November 11th, 2012. Podcast recorded by the writer. It's a question that a lot of people ask nowadays. A question that even some believers use. Believers who, sometimes absent-mindedly, ignore almost the whole of their original religion and its values. They use the question to convince themselves that no do-gooder can really go to hell forever. This article is a comparatively small effort to try to answer this question in ways that might not have been covered elsewhere. Why do atheists, do-gooders, go to hell? What God has to say, an example from scriptures. Regardless to whether you or they agree with the following or not, that's just one of the things God has to say about how non-believing do-gooders or atheist goody-two-shoes will be treated in the hereafter, and why no paradise is waiting as a reward for their good deeds in this life. As for those who care for no more than the life of this world and its bounties, we shall repay them in full for all that they did in this life, and they shall not be deprived of their just due therein. Yet it is they who, in the life to come, shall have nothing but the fire, for in vain shall be all that they have wrought in this world, and worthless all that they ever did. Can, then, he who cares for no more than the life of this world be compared with one who takes his stand on a clear evidence from his sustainer, conveyed through this testimony from him, as was the revelation vouchsafed to Moses aforetime, a divine writ ordained by him, to be guidance and grace unto man? They who understand this message, it is they alone who truly believe in it, whereas for any of those who, leagued together in common hostility, deny its truth, the fire shall be their appointed state in the life to come. And so, be not in doubt about this revelation. Behold, it is the truth from thy sustainer, even though most people will not believe in it. Quran translation, Surah 11, verses 15 to 17. Atheists willingly disregard all advice and warnings. Another pretty good line of argument when talking to an atheist is, look buddy, I'm telling you that there will be a judgment day, and that Hitler and billions of other people who did evil will be judged and punished for their crimes, and that you will get your due rewards in this life. But as a non-believer, God has nothing for you on Judgment Day unless you believe in Him and show some gratitude for the gift of life and countless other gifts. Can you agree with this or believe it? Please answer straightforwardly. Atheist responds, no, there is no God and no Judgment Day, and certainly no heaven or hell. So we have that cleared now, don't we? If my claims turn out to be right, I think it would be pretty darn ridiculous that you'd even have the right to say to God on Judgment Day, but I was a goody two-shoes on earth. How come I have no reward and only punishment now? But faced with eternal torture, you'd probably be ridiculous anyway. And the answer would probably be, someone did warn you, didn't they? You laughed at them, ridiculed them, and insisted that none of this is real. You yourself refused the reward of this afterlife, refused to thank your Creator, insisted that He does not exist. No one forced you. You were warned, but paid no heed, and thought your excuses were good. Today, you can see your excuses aren't valid. Drag this one to hell. Unfair? It's a risk they are willing to take. Frankly, I don't see any problems or injustice here. As atheists read the above words, they usually just laugh or maybe ridicule and challenge the writer. So really, they don't want to even take a chance and consider the possibility. You'd probably ask one of them, would you like to live in heaven after death? And he'd be like, F off. Or, get a life, loser. Or, I pity you and your stupidity. So he does not want paradise. Even if one atheist is not that rude, the bottom line is he is not interested in an afterlife heaven. Does it make sense that God just gives it to him by force on Judgment Day? Seriously. Another atheist may try to be a little smart about it. So they say something along the lines of, "But I don't know if there is a God or Judgment Day. You cannot prove it to me, and I can't know." An answer to that is, neither do I know per se, buddy. This is why it's called belief or a leap of faith, not called a leap of indisputable scientific evidence. If God showed up, it would not be religion anymore, but a phenomenon with scientific aftermath. So, come to think of it, that's all God ever asked for essentially. Just have a little faith, believe in Him. If you can't even do that for an entity that probably gave you life, then don't expect eternal perfection and bliss in a world that you do not believe exists, called paradise. I think that is fair enough, because I don't think that you and I should be given the same reward on Judgment Day. I'm taking a leap of faith, heck, maybe even taking a risk here, and making an effort to believe based on some common sense, and you refuse to do that, or don't feel like it, or whatever. I don't see how it would be fair that you and I get the same prize or return or investment then. Heck, you didn't even invest anything in an afterlife. All your investments are for this life, and your morality or moral compass proves this unequivocally. And God already said that He would give you your due credit in this life for anything useful or good you do in this life. I try to tell you that you are taking the most extremely dangerous risk, and you are clearly and deliberately telling me that you are willing to take it. If you still think that such a deity sounds too ruthless or unfair, unworthy of your worship and gratitude, then I guess you can try that line of argument just before you get dragged to the non-existing hell, eh? See how that works out for you then. And no, this is not about scaring you into submission, because I do not preach organized religion here, but simple belief. And it isn't about scaring anyone, but just showing what is fair enough and what is not. Sharing some common sense, that's all. Fact, nobody is perfect. Consequence, unknown. And there's a couple of compelling reasons why even the most charitable and kind of atheists will probably go to hell. Remember, probably. Because we can't know for sure anyway, it's up to God and depends on what the person thinks in their mind on their last few days before death. One reason is the consequences of nobody is perfect. No one, whether atheist or religious, is perfect. No one can claim that they have never done a mistake in their life, or never hurt anyone, or never harmed anything or anyone. If they never did, then they are perfect by definition. And obviously, no one is. More importantly, we cannot know about all our mistakes, can we? Don't you remember an incident when you or someone else was utterly shocked by how much one seemingly innocent choice made ended up harming someone or many people a lot? Life has countless incidents and events like that. We are not aware of the true extent, chain reaction, and aftermath of every single thing we do or say. The difference between a religious person or believer and an atheist here is that the believer apologizes to a supreme entity for all mistakes, known and unknown. A believer affords the luxury of repenting and saying sorry when there is no one physically there to apologize to. But the atheist obviously has no access to that sort of luxury. And yes, it is a luxury. An atheist cannot apologize to any entity other than one that he or she can see right in front of him or her. Thus, there are potentially thousands of unknown mistakes and after effects of harm that they are not aware of and for which they never apologize to anyone. Someone can argue all they want with comments like, "It can't be that bad, I know I never hurt anyone," and so on. But obviously, such counter-arguments are subjective and impossible to quantify or judge accurately. We simply cannot know the extent or aftermath of what we do. and I will always forward such counter-arguments to the universal dogma that we all agree on: no one is perfect. Where did you get all this? The other reason is the self-evident fact that many things in this life are useful assets or beautiful gifts, including the very gift of life itself. A believer has someone to thank for all those gifts, but an atheist does not thank anyone for gifts like life, eyesight, they could have been blind, healthy nerves, they could have been paralyzed, and so on. Or an atheist at best thanks a non-sentient, non-sapient, inanimate entity like the universe or Mother Nature or any other entity that would not hold him or her accountable and would not inconvenience him or her with judgment, let alone even understand his or her things. No apologies for many guaranteed mistakes, known and unknown, and no thanks for countless assets and gifts, and not even belief, simple belief, a tiny leap of faith. Arrogance. And if someone still says it can't rightfully deserve eternal hell, I'll say, maybe you're right. The mistakes or sins of an unbeliever in this world may not be the decisive factor or the real reasons of eternal torture. The real reason is probably the arrogance within. It's the same arrogance that incited Satan to disobey God while actually talking directly to him. Quote, answered Iblis, Satan, I am better than he. Thou hast created me out of fire, whereas him thou hast created out of clay. Quran translation, Surah 38 or chapter 38, verse 76. Before Satan's downfall and eternal damnation. One incident of arrogance led to Satan's eternal downfall. If Satan exists, then I'm sure you'd agree with me that he most definitely wants a lot of company from among the race that he believes was responsible for his downfall. The race, quote, created out of clay, unquote, humans. What I'm trying to say here is that if you're an atheist, you can consider it a fictional story, but you must admit it's a pretty darn good and believable story. Stories written by humans are usually based on some reality. So what if that story too is based on reality, or at least some reality? Consider Satan simply an, quote, alien, unquote, life form, for example. See, I'm sincerely trying to say to an atheist now that disbelief in his or her creator and consequently failing to show gratitude to him is an absolute fatal mistake, the absolute mistake and crime of all time. And his punishment is eternal damnation and torture once their soul leaves their body, also known as death. I confirm that I am not asking the atheist to, quote, join my flock, unquote, pay me tribute, join my specific denomination, or do anything for me. All I would like him or her to do is to have a little faith, to believe. And in spite of all this, some still refuse. Some mock, ridicule, and insult. Talk about stubbornness and arrogance, camouflaged as rationality and scientific thinking, as if they implement rationality and scientific thinking when it comes to art, music, love, and beauty. I think that's why an atheist do-gooder will probably go to hell. It's not the mistakes or good deeds of their life. Those will probably be largely irrelevant, or only relevant to determine how harsh the suffering is, not how long. But it is the stubbornness and arrogance that kept them from taking even a slight leap of faith to show gratitude to the potential source of their life itself. That type of arrogance caused wars and death of millions in this life. So I can't see why it causes eternal damnation in the afterlife. If they say I'm not arrogant, I'm just not convinced. I need proof. I'll say, maybe you just missed that part when I mentioned it already, so I repeat in different words. I don't see you demanding proof and a scientific thesis to convince you of the music you choose, the art you love, or even the woman or man you love. You choose so many things in life with your heart and instinct. If God is not good enough for you to choose the same way, then don't blame anyone but yourself, especially not God, who gave you that many years in life to think about it and sent you someone like me and many others to try to talk rationally to you about it. Conclusion. Atheists either mock or disregard the advice and warnings, and even long rational discourses. When you say, you could end up in eternal damnation if you do not consider this possibility more carefully, the most polite atheist may smile at you calmly and say, that's a risk I'm willing to take, thank you. Key word, willing to take. They are willing to take the risk, and someone still feels hell is too harsh? Really? Unknown mistakes and consequences, assets and gifts taken for granted, and arrogance. That's why non-believing goody two-shoeses will get their due rewards in this world, then have nothing to get after death, if religion turns out to be right. But if nothing happens after death at all, then I don't see that I would have lost anything as a believer. I'm living normally and having fun too, sometimes with that atheist. I'm definitely not giving too much for a potential eternity in perfection and bliss as a soul. Yaseen Rocca.